Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the podcast where John Gabrio and I talk about web design and building a logo and emblems and stuff like that, what to think about when choosing your design. And then also we get into his other project with Angry Mountain Productions. He's one of the lead guys there and talks about their new project coming up for this year and how last year's project went with Traditions. And just really a great conversation, especially if you're thinking about getting into the industry or creating your own channel, your own brand, what to think about when designing, and just really appreciate his feedback and hope you guys enjoy. Outside of that, if you can, go on to www.onpointpodcast.com. Be sure to sign up for that newsletter, and we've got over 300, close to 400 people on that now, and so I appreciate everybody that's going ahead and doing that. But we need more. We need a lot more. And all you have to do is go onto the website. It should pull up automatically. If it doesn't, just click the sign up tab on the right. I think it's in blue. And just give me your email, and you won't get bombarded with anything. Just be about one a month. But that'll get you good exclusive deals through the On Point podcast, and then also an idea of what content we have coming. So if there's something that interests you, you can be ready for it and download it as soon as it comes out. So outside of that, also want to thank everybody for all of the reviews. Since I requested that we get 100 reviews, we've gotten quite a few. We're only like 15 away now. So that happened really quick. So I appreciate everybody doing that. And we're getting close to 100. So I told you I'd do some sort of cool giveaway. Still working on what that was going to be, but we're getting really close to 100 reviews on iTunes. So thank you so much for everybody that has done that. And if you haven't yet, help us hit that goal. We have a lot of people that have already helped, and definitely could use yours if you haven't done that yet. So outside of that, guys, it was a really fun episode. Thanks, John, for coming on to the show, and I'll see you guys in the end. Bye. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling then.
Cool.
So, all right, John. Well, thanks for coming on to the show, dude. I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, but you're a busy dude.
I know. It's tough. It's like we've talked about it, man. It's been probably a year, huh?
Yeah, it has. Almost, actually, probably a little bit over a year, because back when Facebook was telling me, hey, you did this on this day and this on this day, and it was when I was posting the logos that you did for me.
Oh, yeah.
It was just over a year ago.
Man, time flies. It does not seem like it's been that long. It does, but it doesn't. So.
No, and I get a lot of compliments on the logo. So you did a good job, and I kind of in my own head make fun of myself because I put my logo on everything.
Yeah.
So it's a good logo, and I kind of was wanting to get you on the show to talk about advertising and what you do for a living and like graphic design and stuff like that for guys that are thinking about making that transition or making that leap. And sure. Kind of the goes or no-goes, and then kind of get into Angry Mountain Productions, because you guys came out with your first big YouTube series this year, which is really cool. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah, how did that do? I was just curious. Did that perform like you guys were hoping, or?
Yeah, it was good. Can't really complain about it at all. I think our expectations in a way, I think, were more than obviously what, it produced, but at the same time we had nothing to go off. So I think it did really well for what we expected, as something that was brand new from the ground up, having nothing, and I think it outperformed itself in that regard. I think obviously you're always hoping for more, but at the same time we can't really complain. So I think for this year, things kind of progressing, evolving, people kind of know who we are and like what it is now. And I think this year will obviously be a lot better than what last year's did. So we're optimistic, and plus we have some different things on the plate this year in the way that, everything's going to kind of lay out. So I think that'll be good with, the filming and the hunts and stuff like that. So
yeah. And you did all the design and web stuff for the Angry Mountain Productions, right?
Yeah, so I did all the logo work, all the design, all the media kits, shirts, website, hats, everything that we used for our whole series last year. I did all of it. So that was kind of cool. Obviously, it's kind of cool seeing all your stuff produced and on the screen. So, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things when it's your own project that you're not necessarily making any money off it for doing it. So, it's kind of more of my time just being donated to it right now, but that's okay.
Right.
So
I heard, and we can get into this here later, but I heard Nick Schmidt is actually full-time Angry Mountain Productions.
Nick is full time. He is editing, and that is his sole job, is to edit and just try to look pretty, I guess. So
Yeah.
That's Nick's full time job. So.
Yeah. I want to get into to the dynamics of the crew later in the podcast, because it's just funny watching you guys. You guys have a really fun dynamic with the crew and everything. But let's kind of hit that in the back end of the podcast and kind of get into what you do exactly and how did you kind of get into it thing here?
Yeah, so basically I do a bunch of design and advertising work in the outdoor industry. Design logos, websites, hats, apparel, vehicle wraps, kind of you name it. Anything that has to do with a business from the ground up, all the way to advanced marketing stages online. So anything that is forward facing as far as design, hats, anything like that. I didn't do this one, but long story short, anything that has to do design related, I do to help a company. So we did your logo last year for the On Point for the podcast.
And all the emblems to go with it.
Yeah, all the emblems, everything that went with that. So obviously, I mean, now you've taken that thing and really, took it off the ground and, look where you're at now with it. So, anything that really kind of has to do with a brand from getting started to an established company. I remember working with Phelps back in the day, before he is what he is now. And we came up with his logo, and man, I don't remember when that was, 2011, 12, somewhere in there. And, obviously now where he's at today, but I was the one that actually came up with that. And then, to where he is now. So all this packaging and banners, posters, how that's evolved. So it's kind of cool.
Did you sorry to cut you off. Did you come up with the I Blow Phelps shirt?
I did. So well,
you did.
I kind of, yeah. So it was Phelps's idea, and Phelps had the idea. He wanted that shirt, I Blow Phelps. And so he was like, let's put this together. So it was his brainchild, but I made it. And then we were trying to figure out, like, okay, should we make this thing like, really extravagant and detailed, or do we just do it kind of dumbed down? And so that was kind of our problem, at that point. And so we decided to kind of go with just a funny, goofy shirt, with it, and would wear it. So I don't know. It's been kind of one of those things that it is what it is. And so
that's
I think there might be a second generation of that coming.
So a little teaser there, but that was a pretty fun shirt, and I think humor does sell. So there's actually a little bit of a marketing strategy there too, outside of just having a fun shirt.
Absolutely. So
you've I got turned on to come to you from Cody from Born and Raised Outdoors, and this is back when the podcast wasn't even recorded yet, and I'm like, I don't have a name, I don't have shit. And basically I'm like, who did your stuff? He's like, John. I'm like, give me John's number. I need some help. So I came at you with a yellow piece of paper that had a bunch of names written down on it, and a bunch of like keywords, and a bunch of ideas that I personally had writ down and then didn't like. Yeah. And I'm like, John, come up with something here. And so we were kind of going back probably for about a month.
Yeah. It's probably about a month back and forth.
Yeah. And you like, dude, you got this one written down here and it's on point. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. He's like, why? And you kind of gave me the own sales pitch on one of the names I written down. And it was like, actually, yeah, that does work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it worked. It was good. And I think when we kind of were talking about that, you were trying to kind of figure out, obviously a name for the podcast, but I think some of the names you had were kind of drilling down, like very specific. And I think we, obviously in our collaboration back and forth, we kind of talked about, let's make it more broad, so you can cover anything and everything you want to do. And I think that was kind of how we ended up with the On Point, because, well, I think we were talking archery and stuff like that too, but it could encompass a lot more, which I think obviously it did. And so now you're able to kind of branch out and kind of do whatever you want with it. But I mean, we went back and forth on a ton of names on that. I remember.
Yeah.
That.
I felt bad because you earned every dollar out of me, man. I made you. You're probably like, dude, I can't believe I let this guy hire.
No, it was good. It was good.
Because you were busy with a bunch of other projects at the same time. You're a busy dude, and
Yeah.
you do stuff like you've done stuff for professional teams and stuff too. And I think
Yep.
you were working on full draw stuff about the same time
Yep.
that I was hitting you up, and I'm like last minute everything. And so I kind of want to get into what you kind of just touched on there was pigeonholing or bottlenecking yourself into one area. Because on point, when you were selling me that name or selling me on that name, basically you're like, dude, let's, you can cover anything. And on point is like, you got to know your gear, all this stuff. You practice all the time, good work ethic. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of sold on it now. On point was just kind of a name I'd written down in passing. And then the point that you're not bottlenecking yourself, we can cover. We have one rifle episode, but I plan on having more rifle episodes in the future.
Sure.
For guys that are wanting to come up with a design or a name, how often do you see that, and how big of a role does that actually play?
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually have quite a few people that come to me, probably more often than not, that, they really don't have an idea, or they have a name or maybe something that they want to do, but it's so specific on like a category or a certain thing, and it's kind of one of those things. I'm like, well, do you ever want to take that and like branch out and make it bigger? Or are you just going to cover one topic, one thing, or one like flat, like avenue of your business, like in general, might not be a podcast, but like say they're going to sell broadheads, but it's like, are you going to eventually expand upon that and sell something else other than just a broadhead? And when you kind of look at it like that, from that standpoint, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too much, with a name, just for the fact that it'll allow you to expand. Think bigger, think of like an umbrella, and then, let's put everything inside that umbrella. So maybe just one name, that's bigger, and then go from there. And I think that kind of comes back to your hat right now with, the on point with the piece that we did there. I think in our initial talks, obviously talking archery and talking that type of stuff, we easily could have went down that road and used a broadhead, for your logo, or a fletching or an arrow or something like that. And I think that was kind of one of the things, we talked about with the podcast was, obviously the radio waves that you have in there, and then the OP for the on point, but it left you room to do whatever rather than just talk archery. And I think so. That's a big thing. I get a lot of people when they come to me from that standpoint of wanting to get a logo, and it's kind of one of those things. Well, let's step back and look what you're doing. Where do you want to go with this, in the future? And it may be some people, maybe that's all they want to do. Maybe they're only going to do one thing, and that's totally fine. That's great. We'll design the logo or your brand around that. But if you do want to expand or make it bigger, let's go that route. And I think that was kind of one of the things, we discussed, and how we ended up with like an icon for your business rather than just, a specific little design.
Right. And when you first came out with the originals, I think we ended up making probably 2 or 3 versions of it, and then finally ended up with where we were at, because originally it had like the cell phone tower looking thing on it.
Yep.
I wish I kept all that yellow piece of paper I gave you, because that'd be cool to frame up. Just like this is the beginning right here. That'd have been kind of cool. I'm a nostalgic kind of guy, so but
I probably have that, by the way.
Huh?
I probably have that.
Yeah, because I sent it to you.
Yeah, I save everything.
Dude, you should send me that back.
Yeah, I can do that.
But so yeah, with the antler thing, that's one thing that I'm like, I was thinking about doing something like that. And you're in. It's funny because the Angry Mountain has the deadhead kind of antler thing, but that's getting really played out. I mean, it's kind of easy to get lost into the antler thing. It seems like everybody's doing the antler thing or the elk horn thing. So if a guy is thinking about it, because you guys used it and you're making it work, so it's not like you can't use it. If you're coming out with a guy and he's just trying to develop a logo, first of all, do you take in consideration the non-hunting public's eye? And do you how do you even make that decision? Because I feel like any more good PR for non-hunting and like the anti-hunters and the non-hunters. If I was going to come out, I wanted to make sure it was good for as broad of as an audience. If it's a non-hunting audience or if it is a hunting audience, I'd try and make it as broad as I could.
Yeah.
Like this is about as broad as it's 2 letters with airwaves coming out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I that is something I definitely take into consideration. And I guess that kind of comes back to, what do you plan on doing with this company? And maybe some people, in talking to them, they don't care, like, because let's be honest, there are hunters out there and they really don't care. Like, they kind of have a thing against the antis or anything like that anyways, as it is. And so, like, some people, honestly, like, their main goal is to attack, and like,
yeah,
I hate to say it, but like, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's gun lovers and owners, and then there's not. And so it's kind of, I think it depends on what some of these people are wanting to do. And at the end of the day, like, I'm here to make what they want to see and what they want to make. And so, I do try to give some input on that, obviously, and give, my feedback as far as like what I would do from a professional standpoint. And I guess that kind of comes back to the business and like what they're really wanting to achieve with it. So I try to give my input as much as I can with the professional side of things and what I would suggest and want to see, from where I'm coming from, and then, take your thoughts into mind as well, and then give you your options from, A to B, and, where you'd go with it there. Now, I don't know, like I said, back to the other point though, because then there are some of those people that's all they want to do is seem that they just want to get under people's skin. So I guess in that point, some of those actually are kind of fun to work on, because, it kind of changes things up a little bit from what like I'm really used to in a business standpoint, and like where I would generally go with it. And so I think I do enjoy working on those a little, just because I know like it could make a cool outcome, at the end of it. So like Jade this year. So for Full Draw, well, actually we did it last year, but we redid it this year and we redid the design, but we made a shirt vegan free. And so it was kind of one of those things to kind of play off the PETA thing a little, like people, and like PETA and whatnot. And there is that one shirt, people eating tasty animals, that someone made off of PETA. And so, it's kind of one of those things. But like Jade, we did the vegan free shirt this year, to kind of play off of that a little. But as a hunter, like, if you're wearing that out in public, like people are going to know, like, it's one of those that you're going to take a double take at it, because it's kind of vegan free. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? And so, there's, it's pushy, it's edgy, but enough to where someone, you're not just totally throwing it in someone's face, that like, I'm not,
right. I feel like it's almost like wearing a Trump hat. Like, you're like, yeah, I support Trump. You want to fucking say something about it? Like, you're just looking for that opportunity for that abrasiveness,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And and it may spark a conversation. I don't think the Trump hats spark many good conversations, but it's like a trigger for too many people.
Oh yeah, it's not. Like Phelps, he like at the Northwest Mountain Challenge, he had that Trump shirt on a couple years ago, and that was right around the election and everything when all that went down. And like Phelps was like on a mission, like, I'm wearing this Trump shirt. And he got some looks, and to make it worse, I mean, it's Trump with the American flag and tanks and missiles and, cut off sleeves, and the last person you want to see in a cut off sleeve shirt is Phelps anyways. But I mean, he wore that. He definitely got some looks, but like, you're just going to get that, and so I guess it kind of comes back to like, what do you stand for as a person, and like your business, and like, that's the thing. So.
Well, when you were working with me, I remember you telling me, okay, we need to think ahead here, because if it's too busy, it's going to make a shit sticker. Like, you can't make a decal out of it. If it's too busy, people, what the hell are you looking at? So, we, with your lead, we decided to make my emblem super simple. We even got rid of some things off, like there's the cellular tower. We deleted that, I think, off of the, I just wanted to try and narrow it down to what is the main things that if somebody looks at this thing, eventually they're going to know that's on point. And then eventually we added podcasts in the bottom. Now, that was our last final revision, was instead of with Garrett Weaver, we just put podcast, which I think was a good move. But so if someone's creating, I guess I'm just giving advice to everybody that listens to the show that you've given me is try and make it simple if you plan on making other things out of it. So could you expand on that and say, if you're creating something and you're making it into, I don't even know what the technical term is, a vector, and you want to make it into a sticker or a shirt, what are some general rules of thumb that if you have this logo, it's either going to make a shitty shirt sticker or it's going to make a good one?
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing that, a lot of people, when they end up coming to me, prior owners, business owners, or even like people who have their designs and stuff like that. A lot of people, they come to me and they might have a design that is there's too many elements going on in that. And so what I mean by that is, it'd be kind of one of those things like a deer skull right behind me, for example. If you took that and like all the shadowing and all of like the little holes, nooks, crannies, everything on a skull, and try to put that on a shirt, it basically just take an image and you want to throw it on a shirt or a hat, you're probably going to struggle with that from an embroidery standpoint, from, screen printing, anything like that, because of colors, and so it's kind of one of those things where you need to dumb it down a little bit. And so you need to get clean lines, something that can be easily reproduced in, 1 or 2, 3 colors, very clean, simple, just an easier, overall design to work with. And you can do that with antlers and stuff, as far as that's concerned. Take a skull and, we've seen a million drawings. Look at the hat now. It's like just a simple outline. And it's easy to do, but I think a lot of people come to me and, hey, I want this picture of me with this buck and I want to turn that into my logo. And it's like, okay, we can do that, but here's what we need to do to get that to that point. And I think that's where a lot of people that don't have any understanding in design, they struggle with, because they're like, why can't you just do that? Well, it's an embroiderer. He can't stitch like every little piece, and detail in that, so you got to think how, what's going to reproduce. And I think that's a learning curve that a lot of people go through with hats, shirts, apparel. Like if they want to do an apparel business, is getting schooled up on that. It's a learning curve. And so I think that's where the expertise of coming to someone like myself that does design work and has done a ton of this, I can guide you in the right direction, as far as things to look out for, help you with the whole process, where to get shirts, hats done, that type of thing, and kind of guide you on a few things that will get you going.
Well, I know when I was setting all the shit up for the show and stuff, it was like even just the simple things like converting it into the right PNG or whatever to get the emblem approved for iTunes. It had to be a certain, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it had to be a certain thing. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand this shit. I can't convert it to what it uses. Like, oh, there you go. I was like, okay, so having you just to be able to do that shit was like amazing. So
yeah. That's the thing, it's like, they're just things that like I've learned over the years and that I know, but when it comes back to web stuff or shirts or hats or anything, it's like, or a big one is like magazine ads or anything like that. If you're running, granted, print's kind of not what it used to be, but like running a magazine ad, you build a half-page ad or a full-page ad or whatever it is, bleed like around an ad. And color formats too, for RGB, which is, web use and screen use, versus CMYK for printing. And then having a bleed around an ad, which is basically an extra border that runs outside of an ad. So when they put it in, they cut it. And, it's all those type of things that most people don't know, and so that's why, obviously, I think using a professional that does this stuff will save you a lot of time and energy. And then, in the meantime, we're going to get it done right and do it once. And,
right. A vector file, that's for like stickers and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. And so like, that's the other thing too. So when it comes down to logos, I build all my logos in vector. And so you want to start there. And what vector is basically, it's Adobe Illustrator. There's several others, but it's based on mathematics. And so when you design something, it's scalable from basically the size of a needle point all the way to the side of a building. And it doesn't lose quality or it doesn't distort. And the thing of, with that is obviously based off mathematics. The bigger that you make it, it just goes with it because it knows what each constraint needs to be. And so that's a thing. I've had a lot of people come to me over the years that have built their logos in Photoshop. Well, it's a great program. I use it every day for design. But the thing is that is built on a rastered program to where it's only done to that pixel or dot, and so it's like 300 DPI, which is pretty standard for most print ads, but that's all you get. Whereas a vector file is built at 3600. And so it's like when you start thinking about the quality of that, it's kind of, and that comes back to printing too, stickers, hats, shirts, whatever. Think about a vector file having that much more detail and quality in that for that crispness versus something that's built in Photoshop where you've only got certain DPI restrictions.
That's interesting to say that, because I noticed like when I zoom in on and I'm editing like in Adobe or I only use Adobe, but when I'm editing and I'm zooming in or changing it or I'm making like a logo sting or a bumper out of something, no matter how big I magnify it to put it onto the screen, it's always the same. Like it doesn't distort when you get it bigger, and it doesn't pixelate. And so that's interesting because I'm like, and so it's because you used vector.
Yep.
I guess. Okay. That makes a lot more sense for me, because I'm like, I was always worried about scaling it up, and I did it a while ago, and I'm like, well, that doesn't do the same thing as my photos does. It doesn't get all shitty like a photo.
Yep, exactly. And that's why it's just that vector-based program. And so it allows it to stay.
Cool.
So.
Well, it's got to be really cool seeing, because I know like if I ever see something that like somebody wearing a hat, I'm like, oh, sweet, they're wearing a hat. But for you, it's like, hey, that guy's wearing my logo. That's got to be pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it's cool. Like when I first started doing this stuff a long time ago, it was kind of one of those things. Like every time I'd see something, I'm like, oh, dude, that guy's wearing my hat or shirt, you know, and like it was cool to see that.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the things too that really kind of took it to the next level was like walking into like a Cabela's and like seeing packaging that I had designed hanging on the shelf for a company. And then like archery shops, I kind of in progression, like archery shops, and then like a Sportsman's, and then now Cabela's and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool to walk in those stores or Shields or whatever and like see packaging that I've designed, or shirts or hats or whatever strung out across all those big brands,
That would be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's weird, it's kind of like one of those things to walk in and be like, here's a whole shelf space, and I made every piece that's running down that whole shelf, and it's just, I don't know, it's different, and especially now with like all the YouTube stuff, everyone, shirts, hats, all that stuff everywhere. And I mean, I've been at the grocery store, and walk by and see a dude wearing a shirt or a hat, and I'm like, oh, I made that, and it's kind of funny just to see that stuff, and like the born and raised stuff, like all the bro stuff from a couple years ago when they did Land of the Free. Like I made that logo, the Land of the Free logo. And then how many people bought a shirt or a hat and are wearing that around now? And, it's so different, to really kind of, I don't know, it's hard to like fathom sometimes, I guess.
That would be cool. Maybe it's because I'm just kind of a dork, but I'd like try and sneak like my name in there somewhere, like an artist.
Yeah. I know, like it's weird. Like it's kind of funny. Like I love being behind the scenes doing the work. And like for me, I don't know, it's like I like seeing it in final version, like your hat, like looking at your hat right now, across the screen. It's like I love seeing the final product and like knowing that turned into something. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of cool as it is. It's like I've thought about in the past, like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to have my name on it. And I'm like, I don't know, like it just, to me, like now I'm like, I don't even care, it's like, to me, I just love doing the work so much and seeing it.
Yeah.
Like I don't want the recognition. Like I don't need it, it's like, I just love making people's dreams come true, and it's like, to me, I see people succeed and like their stuff that I've made is like helping them succeed. That's all. I'm happy, like that's all I care about.
That cool. That brings up a point that like, cause you've done a lot of consulting, just like talking me through thought processes for like the other day I called you about a banner, which after I spent all the money and ordered it, Kim goes, that's pretty busy. I'm like, babe, it's a backdrop banner. She's like, yeah, but it's just busy. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's too effing late now, like it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use it, but like I was in the beginning. I told Phelps this too. I was like, man, I'm really worried about having my name on something because I don't want to be like, I don't know. I guess I'm really worried about how people portray me.
Sure.
And so, like, when we originally designed the On Point Mountains and it had Garrett Weaver on there, I struggled that really hard with that part. I'm like, man, I don't want people to think like, because obviously I'm going to be like the front man for it, but I don't want people to think that it's just like an ego booster or I'm just trying, it's about me, like I really struggled with that. Is there, and like you said, you like being behind the scenes and stuff. And I know Phelps is kind of the same mind. I mean, at what point is that just something that you're going to have to get over if you're trying to do something like what I'm doing or what Phelps did? Or is there actually a real concern there when you're actually making a logo and there's a fine line between being a douchebag and then actually being, legit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think some of it honestly is personality, right? Because I think like some people, like that's what they want. I mean, it's like certain people, their egos, and like they are so driven on their name, seeing their name wherever they can see it. And so I think it kind of comes back to like a little bit your own personality, and what you're doing. Obviously, I mean, like the podcast, you're the host. Right. I mean, like, and that's the thing, I mean, you are the host, you're the one who's making this what it is. And so I think like on a podcast part, I would be looking at it more of like, hey, yeah, like I'm proud of this. This is me. I'm going to put my name on it. I'm the host and I'm here and I'm going to talk to all of you. I wouldn't be as concerned about it. Now, if I was, well, I don't know, like Phelps, he's like selling all his alcohols, right? Right. And like he's trying to build a brand. Right. And so like for him, I mean, you are too, but like you have to have like your name, like people need to know you. And it's like Phelps, like you're building that brand. And it's kind of one of those things of, yeah, Jason was the face of the company and still is. But at the same time, all you want people to remember at the end of the day is that big P, like that P's on that bugle tube or this reed, whatever. And so he doesn't need to have his name plastered across everything. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where, a lot of people kind of look at things, as far as I want my name on it because it's me and I would love seeing my name or, I don't know. I'm torn on that. It's as far as of needing your name on something, I think now, okay, a good example, Cameron Haynes. Let's look at him. Okay. And so like Cam, you slap his name on anything, it's going to sell.
Right.
But that's, Cam's built that brand. So I guess at that point, like, so when I made the Keep Hammering logo for Cam, like way back in the day. I mean,
you did?
Yeah. And so like, I was the one who came up with that. Well, Cam had the idea, but like I made it, brought it to life. And then, of course, now look at where that thing's at. I mean, it's on everything. Huge. Under Armour. Yeah. Hoyt Bose, like, on their limbs, like he's got his own line. And so I think the Keep Hammering portion built obviously what that is, but then Cam's signature's on there. And it comes, I mean, dude, anyone who got into bow hunting, I mean, Cam used to be my idol back in the day. I mean, he's got so many of us into backcountry bow hunting, in his book. Mm-hmm. And so looking at that, I think it's something like that where so many people know the name, Cameron Haynes. And it's like, dude, you stamp that thing on a pair of underwear. I mean, it would probably sell, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of one of those things where certain people, certain levels, like a professional sports athlete. I mean, Cam pretty much is in the bow hunting industry, right? You know what I mean? And like, that's what he is. And so it's kind of like you slap their name on anything, it's going to sell. And I don't know. I think there's different levels to it. Selling a product with someone's name endorsed and stamped on it versus your podcast where you are the host. Like you have to know, I mean, who you are. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, and I think, but like even with Phelps, like he has his own signature series read, and like he brought Dirk on and like Dirk has the Maverick and like everyone knows the Maverick because of Dirk, and like it's stuff like that. And then like Charlie has his read. No one knows Charlie. Charlie doesn't sell. And so, hi Charlie, I love you, buddy. Hope you watch. But it's stuff like that though. I think, where you have, your own your name for certain applications.
Right. I guess, thinking about, you're bringing up Cameron Haynes, and then you got like Jim Shockey, Michael Waddell. I don't think any of those guys are douchebags.
Right.
I think it really comes down to intent.
Sure.
And for me, like I'm probably just hypersensitive to the way I'm perceived because I've worked hard through the YouTube channel to build rapport and to build kind of like this unbiased perception and kind of just an honest dude. And
Yeah.
I just don't ever want to be perceived as different than that. And so, I'm struggling to even think of somebody that I would consider a douchebag in the industry that uses their own name. I honestly can't think of many off the top of my head. So, and to bring it back to even farther than that, the banner, I called you. I'm like, is that douchey? I use that word so often. I asked my wife, I'm like, is this douchey? Should I not do that? Should I do this? And she's like, no, it's not douchey. And by the way, douchey is not a word,
Yeah.
And so you're like, no, dude, like so you kind of talked me into like doing the banner and stuff and that it was a good idea. But I think having, for me personally, just being aware that, what are you doing this for? Is you doing it for the podcast or are you doing it for your ego? For me, I if it's not going to benefit the podcast or benefit the show, period. And my mind coming from the beginning is I want to be perceived as legit and I want to be perceived as professional. I don't want something that looks like my 6-year-old or I don't have a 6-year-old, that looks like my dog created.
Sure.
But at the same time, I want something that people, they look at it like when I pop up on iTunes, I don't want a shitty looking thing because if the guy's not willing to spend, in my head, if the guy's not willing to spend some time creating a good looking emblem, he's probably not going to spend much time creating a decent freaking podcast, So
Yeah.
I was very hypersensitive about out of the gate not skimping on audio, emblem, anything. And so that's kind of where you came along, and in my mind, I got a very professional looking everything.
Yeah. And I think that and we kind of talked about that in the beginning too, it was like, let's do this and do it right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then, everything's going to take off and it'll help you. And I think that that's kind of one of those things where, we had that discussion because it's like, if you have people, there's a bunch of them out there. I mean, there's a ton of podcasts and apparel companies. I mean, dude, I swear every time I get on Instagram now, it's like I look and boom, there's a new apparel company that's popped up and they're everywhere. And that's the thing, but it's like, there's a select few that really stand out. And the ones that stand out are the ones that are professional. They've got their designs, shirts, logos, hats, all their branding is consistent and they've done it right. And then it's like, you're going to remember that, and it's like your podcast, like talking about not skimping on the audio. And it's like, it's easy. I mean, it's like, yeah, you could cut a corner here or there and sure. I mean, it's easy to do, but do it right, do it from the beginning and start off right. And you're going to at least be taken seriously as hey, this guy's here to, he's professional. He's not cutting corners. He looks good. And I think that that'll help. And I think that was kind of plays back to also one of the things we did with Angry Mountain this year. And so our first year, we went out and hired camera guys to follow us around the woods and take pictures, film. We bought all good top quality Sony gear and we didn't cut corners. We bought, drone, we bought, gimbals, everything. And because we wanted to do it right and cranes and we did it all. And so it's just kind of one of those things where how serious do you want to take this, and what do you want to do? I mean, maybe some people are totally cool at the end of the day. They're like, hey, I just want to make a little video on my handheld camera and put it on YouTube. And I'm cool with that. So yeah, I mean, I think it kind of comes back to the standpoint of how professional do you want your brand and how serious do you want people to take you, and I think that you talk about putting your name on something, you're a little nervous about it. Why? It's like you've done everything right. You look professional, it's a brand, and you want people to know that and be proud to stand behind it.
That's a good point. And maybe that's just even a personal issue that I just need to get over and maybe I guess a confidence issue is do I deserve to have my name on this shit? Do I deserve to play with the big boys yet? And that's something that I just through all the books and everything that I've read back when I was on that personal growth kick a few years ago, reading every personal growth book out there is I just kind of want to look at it from all angles, but at the same time, you got to kind of quit being a pussy, get over some shit, and come out with a logo and don't be afraid to say, hey, I believe in this. Here's my name. I believe in it enough to, like, I'm Cameron Haynes. I believe in Spot Hog. I'm going to put my name on that shit, right? And eventually, where I see the brand going, and I've been told it won't work, and I don't care. This is where I see the brand going. Is I want eventually to have On Point to be something that it's like a seal of approval for gear. Like, this is On Point approved. This is going to be legit. I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. Like a broadhead or a pack or something like that. Like, that's something that I eventually want to get the brand going, is to where it's trusted enough. Kind of like where Aaron Snyder is right now with if he says something is legit, people will buy it. Yeah. And that's kind of where I see On Point going is I want to be to that level where with gear, and then eventually have like either my logo or my seal of approval on something that I totally believe in. So and so that's where I see my thing going, and you're going to have this emblem hopefully on people's website. Hey, we're On Point approved.
yeah. Hey, and that's the thing. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Nope.
Aaron's been doing that for a long time. He had his back, or his elk reaper or whatever he had, like, way back in the day. Before rock slide, before everything, even what is what it is now, and Kafaru and all that, and I think that's the thing, that over time, it just takes time to build something and, like, get that credibility, and of course it helps when he kills 25 animals a year with a stick bow, but, like,
yes,
that definitely helps put some credibility. But I think it's all doable, that's the thing. And, like, don't ever cut yourself short, and I think that's what a lot of people, so, like, my dad, like, for example, my dad is like he'll even admit it, like, he's the biggest pessimist on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's just who he is. He's taken the safe route his entire life and played it by the books, went and got a corporate job at, 18 and, like, worked it and retired. It was kind of one of those things, like, same job his entire life, did the 401k and, like, called it a day, And I think that our generation a little bit now has changed, obviously, with, that type of a job, and, like, a lot of us are kind of venturing out, and using the web and social media and things like that to build an income and, do those things in a life, and self-employment, and I think obviously I have myself, and, like, my dad, though, he's funny because he's, that type of guy, being the pessimist that, this is never going to work. That's not going to work, and, like, don't step out of your boundaries too much. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like one of those things, well, you're never going to get anywhere in life if you don't try. And, like, that's always kind of been my motto. And I use it for hunting too, a lot. Like, my dad, we'll be out hunting sometimes and spot a big buck or a bull across the canyon, we'll never get there, before dark. And I'm like, I'm going, and it's like, and that's just me, and, like, I want to go and try. And if I don't succeed, at least I gave it a shot, you know? And I think that's kind of comes back to, like, your podcast. It's like, dude, you're doing it, and it's like, keep going, like, give it a shot, and don't let anyone tell you no. And if someone says no, I always look at that as, like, a way to prove people wrong. I'm like, I'm just going to do it and look back someday and be like, hey, yeah, well, you told me I couldn't do it, but now I did it. Yeah.
It's so crystal clear with my vision of where this thing's going and where I want it to go. It's like, I've already seen it. Like, it is in my head. It is already a reality. I just have to do the work to get it there. And I think that's half the battle. But no, I've looked into, because there's already OPA, professional archery things and stuff like that, and so I have to come up with a On Point approved thing, because I'd probably get sued over that. But just having a vision and then having it a way to get there, it's so motivating. Like, it's really, like, that's half the battle. That's liberating. I feel like a lot of these guys that come out with a logo and then they want to come out with shirts and everything. First of all, what's your intent? You trying to, like, get rich quick off of selling some cheap gear or a cheap shirt, and that's another thing. Even with the shirts, I went good quality. I didn't go with the cheap cotton shit. I went with something that I would wear, or I could even go on a jog in, or I could even hunt in. Like, it's that, like, I don't, some percentage fleece or whatever. And it's, or, maybe it's not fleece, polyester. Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I guess just, how do you want to be perceived? And what is your intent and what's your long term? Is the things that were my kind of hot buttons in producing that stuff. But I do want to get into Angry Mountain here because we're already 42 minutes in here.
Yeah.
Is kind of walk me through your development of Angry Mountains Productions logo and stuff like that, because not that we bashed on the elk. This is one of my favorite shirts, and I know the guys that are listening to this won't see it unless you're watching it on YouTube, but it's the dead elk skull with the big rack, and it's got full draw under the main beam of it here, and it's one of my favorite shirts, man. I mean, it always has been. I've had this since it came out, a couple years.
Yeah. It's been actually 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I'm still wearing the shit out of it, and it's a good shirt, and it's still held together, which is another reason why I wanted to go with something nicer.
Yeah.
And so, walk me through the development of Angry Mountain from your standpoint.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because we just talked about building something that would like have the umbrella, right? And like that bigger like feeling. And so obviously using a deer and an elk, you kind of pinhole yourself a little bit with kind of outside the hunting industry, if you will. Now, part of our thought was we are doing this series and we want hunters to watch our videos. Like that's what we wanted. Like we were like, hey, we're doing this because we love it and we want other hunters to see our hunts, feel like they're there with us, and like come along and just see a day-to-day like series on the hunt and maybe learn something along the way, as far as calling elk or looking for glass and deer or whatever it might be. And so what we kind of came back to from a sales standpoint for us was like, hey, how many people drive down the road and you see a deer and elk antler sticker on the back of some guy's truck, and like, hey, that guy's a hunter, And so that was kind of where we went with that whole thing. Was we thought about doing just the AMP, like AMP, but then there's AMP energy drinks. And so we were kind of like, well, crap, if we go that route, we don't want to get sued by an energy drink company, but that would be our bigger umbrella. But then how many people are going to know what AMP really means with Angry Mountain Productions? And they're going to think of an energy drink. So we were like, okay, we need to like step back a little bit and figure out what's going to sell to hunters. Well, then everyone has either a deer or an elk. And so we were like, why don't we make a delk? And so we called it the delk. And so we did, half deer and half elk and put them on a skull and put it together. And so then we thought, hey, from sales, you put a deer and an elk, because every dude that drives down the road in his truck, he's got either an elk or a deer skull or sometimes both. So let's put them together and then we'll sell the deer and the elk, and then people will buy it for that. And then they get the best of both worlds because now they've got their delk on their truck and they're good to go. So that was kind of honestly our thought process of the whole thing, was like, bring it back just to hunters, and then what's going to get both worlds. Because obviously in the hunting industry, it's like we kind of have this Western side going on and then the Midwest guys, but even in the Western guys, we have mule deer and elk. And no one really even thinks about whitetail on top of that. And so it's kind of one of those things. I got voted out. I'm a big whitetail hunter. Like the bucks behind me, those are all from Washington, just, deer that I've killed there. Yeah. And so like my goal one day is just to have a room lined with Euros from Washington, like of whitetails, And so that was kind of my whole thing, but I got voted off on the whitetail side. So we went the mule deer on the delk. But most guys obviously love chasing either big mule deer or elk. And like that kind of seems to be the thing of Western guys, is I'm an elk hunter, I'm a mule deer hunter, or both, but they kind of lean one or the other. So that was kind of where we settled on that and ended up with the elk and the deer, and then, kind of went from there.
Right. Well, when I was talking to Phelps a while ago, he's like, AMP, Angry Mountain Productions, Amplify. He's like, it kind of just all really tied in well, even especially with his line.
Yep. And that was the other thing. Like, he already had that Amplify line with his diaphragms. And so we were like, hey, if we took the AMP, Angry Mountain Productions, and we spun it off of that, then, it all ties in. So our series would tie into, his call line as well, I guess. So that was kind of there was more to the whole thing, obviously, with Phelps being a big, sponsor of our whole piece.
So your crews, if you watch your Traditions series is what it was called, right? Traditions.
And that was last year. This year it's called Just Hunt.
Just Hunt. Okay, so you guys already have a name for it and everything. That's
Yep.
cool. So you guys had a shit ton of people on like the cast of hunters. Like there was a ton of them. Like I thought it was just 4 guys, 5 guys. There's more than that.
Yeah, there was a ton.
Yeah. And I was glad to finally see a girl get in on one of these crews that hunts and stuff. So that was a cool move there. But so your dynamic, the crew dynamic here, and I laugh about it because I almost feel like it is a bunch of buddies, but it's almost like and so is the bro guys, but it's a different dynamic because you guys those guys are like kind of like brothers. And you guys are too, but more of like seems like almost like frat kind of brothers. Like you guys flick each other a lot of shit.
Yeah,
there's a lot of you're gonna have to have a thick skin if you hunt with you guys. So I've seen a lot of your nicknames from Charlie and I call him the Captain America looking one, the Nick Schmidt guy, built like freaking Captain America. He's out there. It seems like every chance he gets, he has his shirt off or shorts, cut off shirt and everything, and showing his guns off. But
shirts. Yeah, that's Nick.
So I guess what I'm going to do is just walk me through your guys' career for guys that don't know about Angry Mountain. You got, I consider you guys the 4 main guys.
Yeah. So it's obviously Phelps, and then myself, and then Charlie Smith, and then Nick Schmidt. And so Phelps and I, we met in an archery shop like years ago, and then there's a forum called Hunting Washington, and Charlie was on there for his taxidermy. So Charlie, for those of you who don't know, it's Charlie's Taxidermy, and his nickname, slowest taxidermist in the West, is true. So Charlie used to be really good, really efficient. He was on it, and then Charlie hit a little wall and slowed down, and then needless to say, it took 5 years for me to get a mule deer back, which I still don't have. But so long story short, Charlie is kind of our little redheaded stepchild of the group. Literally. And, but yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. Like, we've all been buddies forever. And, it's kind of more one of those things that it's like, it is a brotherhood in a way, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things where we all were friends before. And those type of buddies that you were just going to flip shit to one another no matter what, and like, that's what it was. And it started years ago on Facebook, and like, that's how it was. And like, it's stuck ever since. And so, I mean, like every year on my birthday, I just expect posts. I mean, Dirk made one of me going, like Lord of the Rings, they call me like, going back to, in there. And so it's just like those type of things all the time. But like, at the same time, it's kind of, you better have thick skin, but it makes it fun because of the group, and being able to have that camaraderie and like go out in the woods and like, I don't know, it's kind of, I feel like we joke around a lot more than we actually are hunting, but like when it's time to kill, like we are serious. But then Charlie's wife, even she joins in on it, and like we all have fun and like, we're all joking around and like everything, and it's a good time. And so, it's kind of one of those things where as much as I would think that, like my dad, even like he watched us last year, and my dad was like, "You guys are ridiculous," because my dad hunted with us in Montana, and so it was Charlie, his wife, myself, and my dad, and like we had camp together every night. And my dad just sit there shaking his head because he's old school. I mean, my dad's 71 years old, and like he's total old school dude, and like a lot of stuff we're doing and saying, and like we have video throughout the day. We'd come back and watch it at camp. Hey, we saw this or did that. And my dad it's kind of one of those things, like he'd sit there and just shake his head, and just, what are you guys are ridiculous, and like, that's what he'd always say. So I don't know though. Like, I love it because it's kind of one of those things where, you don't have to be serious. Like, it's like, you can say whatever, do whatever, joke around and have that fun, and that, honestly, I mean, that's what we're all out there to do, is have fun and hunt. I mean, I don't go out there to be super serious and like, drill myself into the ground like a drill sergeant, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I go out, like, I want to have fun and laugh and be with my buddies, And I think that's kind of one of those things where the dynamic of the group works. And then Tyson is the other person that's involved, and he's actually one of Jason's good childhood buddies, and they've grown up together. And so Tyson is a killer. I mean, fills every tag pretty much he ever has in his pocket. And Tyson's kind of just one of the guys, but he's a little quieter, like a little more reserved, and that's totally fine. You know, and we're breaking him in though. Like Tyson's finally getting to that point where I think you're going to start seeing a different side of him, but like, you know, he's you know, he is one of us. And so, but Kelly, she's the mute. Like she just will not say much. It's hard to read her. Like if you could put like her in a poker room and actually she knew how to play poker, like she'd probably do really good.
That's funny. Well, yeah. I know that they call you the Hobbit and stuff like that. What's Charlie's nickname?
Charlie has a bunch. We call him the Leprechaun.
The Leprechaun, that's right.
Yeah, because, you know, obviously the red hair, being shorter, and you know, he is stubborn, and like he's got an attitude like no one's business. So just stay on his good side.
That's funny. What's Nick's?
Nick has a bunch. Man, I like your Captain America one. I'm gonna start using that. But probably the Schmidt show. Like we say that quite a bit. He's got that nickname. But I don't know. What else do we call Nick? There's a lot. So they're probably not appropriate to say on here.
That's okay. If you listen to the Wolf podcast, anything's possible on this show.
Okay.
That one got away from us.
Yeah.
But so it's a really cool dynamic, man, and it's fun to watch because just the differences between you know, like the Born and Raised guys, which you guys hunted on, and then so you saw some of the same kind of hunt because you guys collabed last year. And then, so what's different about this year's season coming up?
So for 2019, it's kind of going to be a little different in a way, actually, because not many of us are really hunting together. Mm-hmm. And so we've kind of brought in industry partners we've had good relationships with. That's kind of a tough thing too, because I have a lot of relationships from my business. Phelps has his. Then we kind of have the AMP stuff also. We've all kind of tried to bring people in that we all work with and, you know, that we're together with to do our series for this fall. And so, I mean, obviously Loopold, you know, Phelps hunting with Michael from Loopold, you know, and Nick kind of bringing in a couple of his buddies from Oregon, and they're going to hunt elk together. Then obviously I moved to Utah this year, and then I'm going to hunt with Kylie. And so we're going to Montana and then, you know, Washington for deer, and then hunt here in Utah and stuff like that. And so then Charlie's going to Oregon with Toby Gangler and his wife. Actually, Charlie and his wife both are. And so it's kind of going to be one of those things this year where we're all going to kind of branch out away from each other and hunt, but hunt with people in the industry and people that are on social and people that kind of everybody knows and sees, and kind of bring to light some of the people behind the scenes at some of these companies that people don't know. Like, who is the marketing director of Loopold? Like, you know, like, who is that? And so it's kind of like, well, let's get him on film and bring him out and hunt with him, you know? And so like, and Nick hunt with Casey from Mountain Ops and stuff like that. And so kind of show who some of the people are from behind the scenes of some of these companies. And then at the same time, our goal of just hunt, to show that it doesn't matter if you've drawn a special tag, if you're going to hunt over the counter, if you're hunting on public or private or whatever it is, just go out and hunt and have a good time. You know, like, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. And that's what we all love to do, is just hunt. And I think that kind of stemmed back to a little bit from this year and the last few years on social. You see a lot of guys kind of tearing each other down, you know, and it's kind of one of those things of, oh, you shot that with a compound, not a Chad bow, or you used a long range gun, or you were hunting on private, or you had a special tag, or whatever it is. And I think we kind of wanted to show that it doesn't matter. Like, just go out and have a good time. Who cares where we killed this buck or bull or whatever, or how, or with what? Like, dude, it is what it is. And like, if we all don't stick together and do this as a hunting community, so, you know, I think that's kind of a key thing, is just, hey, go hunt, have fun, enjoy it, and, you know, go for it.
Well, I know personally that shit really, really gets under my skin. Like, you know, PETA, the vegans, you know, they're way more unified in their efforts to screw us over and get their message across. The wolf advocates, they are absolutely unified.
Yep.
And then we got guys pissed off over what FOC you're using, or if you're using a compound versus a trad bow, and it just, that shit is so stupid. Like, it doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
You're gonna get me on my soapbox here, but that shit just, I cannot stand it. Like,
yeah.
I hunt with everything.
Yep.
If crossbows were legal here, I would buy one and I would use it and I'd try it out. Like,
yeah.
If baiting bears was legal here, I would try it out.
Yeah.
You can't really knock it until, I mean, I don't believe, like, I have my own personal ethics, and I don't push those on other people. I voice them and say, hey, if this resonates with you, then cool, man. But if you don't, tell me to go piss off and go do your own thing. Like, why should I dictate what you're doing? And I guess kind of like a libertarian hunter, mindset here is like, just leave me alone, let me do my own thing, as long as I'm portraying hunting in a good light and I'm being a positive light in the industry. Leave me the hell alone.
I agree with you 100%. And like, that's kind of the thing, and we tear each other down more than we build each other up,
Yeah.
And it's sad, and like social is a great tool, but it's also our worst enemy, and I think that's where, as a hunting community, we could all do a lot better with, hey, we're all here, we're in this, we're one, and maybe that's a thing. Like, I don't know, maybe we need to do some sort of video or like something. I don't know. Like, you see like those, I don't know, like motivational videos or something. Maybe we need to do that, and like have like get as many people as we can in industry and like put it all together and like pump that thing out somewhere. Like, I don't know what we need to do to go about it, but like, it sucks. Like, to see so many people trying to tear each other apart, and it's kind of, I don't know, like gun hunting, it's like, oh, you shot that with a gun, even to more broad, like versus a bow, and it's like, who cares? Like, I just love hunting, and like last year I bought a long range gun. I killed a deer in Montana with it, and like, it was fun. Like, like, I don't care. Like, I enjoy it.
I'm kind of like Phelps. I love elk hunting with a bow, and I really love hunting mule deer with a rifle. I love it. I just love that time of year, the smells, the scenery, the way the bucks are acting, and you never know what you're going to see. And if you see it, there's in many situations, there's a good chance you can kill it.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it's getting revenge from all the ones that give me the slip with a bow.
Yeah. No
But,
joke.
I've got the long range gun. I've guns. I've got long range rigs. I've got a compound bow, and I have trad bows. Like, unless you're killing shit with your bare hands, like that dude in Colorado, you can't really say anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless you're using a rock, I mean, come on, man. I mean,
yeah,
you can really dig at anybody, and then you can be like, oh, well, that was only a cub cougar. I'm like, get the hell out of here. What are you talking about? Like, there's just so, if you want to be negative, there's more room to be negative, and it's easier to be negative. And it's honestly, I think you have to try to be positive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see a big bull on elk addicts killed, what's the first question that you see? Public or private?
Yep.
Like, that's the first question you see. And to me, that's not a negative question, but it really leads easily towards like, oh, okay, well, fuck that guy. That was on private property. He's not legit.
Yeah.
There's some really good hunters I know, some fantastic hunters I know that buy LOP tags, and they're just tired of getting screwed by other public land guys. It's not because they can't find elk.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm right there with them, like.
Dude, I'm with you 100%, and like, that's the thing. So like this year, and I was kind of, not that I cared where anyone killed anything, but like, I think what it is, a lot of people, they see a big buck or bull killed on private, and they're envious because they want to be that guy. They want to be the person that killed that big buck or bull. I mean, we all as hunters, I mean, yeah, we love it, but like, who doesn't want to kill a big buck or bull? I mean, we all do, I mean, it's like, you love seeing big animals and it's cool. But I had never drawn an elk tag in my life in 21 years of hunting, and I've never drawn an elk tag. And I was like, dang, one day I just want to get a tag, and so this year I moved out of Washington. It's my last year there as a resident. And so putting in, and I'm like, man, I have 17 points. And I'm like, let me draw an elk tag. Granted, we won't know for another month, but the day that Washington opened this year to put in for permits, Montana's results came out. And I was like, I'm never going to draw a tag. You know what I mean? And like, whatever. I look, boom, I drew an elk tag finally. And so,
really?
Yeah, and so it's kind of one of those things. And it was funny because I was talking to Kylie, and I was like, man, I've never drawn an elk tag in my life. And, here we go. And I put in with her and my dad as a group, and all three of us drew. And so it was kind of cool because now we can all hunt together, and, it's awesome. And I love it. But I know I'm probably going to get crap for that if I kill a big bull, or one of us does, because of, it's a special tag, and so it's like, I can already see it coming, and the thing is, it's like, I've cut my teeth on public land my entire life hunting elk, and it's like, yeah, I want to kill one big bull in my life. Like I would love to shoot a 330 plus bull, you know, and like I've had chances on public land and blew them, but I can already see it coming. Like the minute you post anything, oh, it's going to be like, oh, it's a special tag. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, I don't care though. You know, like I just want to kill a big bull and have a good hunt. But how many guys are buying landowners tags? Dude, if I could afford to buy a landowners tag every year and go hunt and spend $5,000 and go hunt, I would do it. You know, I mean, like, why not? It's a chance to hunt elk. They're not like they're caged. They're in a pen. You still got to go chase them down, call them in.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people get that, like, you know, that stigma is that, you know, oh, it's easy. Like there's on private. Well, they're still wild animals, you know? And so, yeah, some of them are less pressured, but they're still a wild animal. You still got to go call it in or track it down and kill it, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's the difference between, outside of there being more people around, but honestly, what's the difference between a Mount Emily bull tag, which I was on this year with a friend, and what's the difference between that and hunting like just your average private property that, you know, maybe your buddy owns a ranch of a couple thousand acres? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'd rather go hunt Mount Emily because that shit was awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, unless people run them, in a lot of cases here in Oregon, unless people run the elk onto private, which usually takes a few days, especially during rifle season, you're going to have a hard time killing that elk unless those elk show up on the property. So, you know, there's different levels to everything, but I mean, you can judge anything you want if you're just, you know, they don't make statues of critics. You know, they just don't. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you guys are listening to this podcast, keep that in mind next time you're thinking about being a douchebag. They name one critic they made a statue of. They don't do it. You know, it's people that are the ones doing shit that they remember. So outside of that, man, I mean, I appreciate you coming on to the show. Is there anything you want to cover before we wrap this thing up?
I think we kind of covered a bunch, kind of talked about some design work, a little bit of hunt, a little bit of amp stuff. I don't know.
A little bit of a soapbox.
Yeah, a little bit, but no, I think we're good. So I appreciate your business over, you know, and doing your logo and stuff. That was fun. So.
Yeah, well, give folks a place, kind of give yourself a shout out, Angry Mountain a shout out, tell them where they can find you, and leave them with some contact information. Yeah, so
you can find our Angry Mountain stuff on angrymountainproductions.com or Angry Mountain Productions on IG or Facebook. And then my personal stuff, you can find me at John Gabrio. It's JONGABRIO on social, or apexadvertising.co. And that's my website. So if you want to go there, check out some design work, need logos done, websites, anything like that, go check it out. And
yeah. Well, I know that you got my business moving forward in the future. You've been such a great. Your customer service is awesome. There's been multiple times where I need something done quickly or like formatted, and you're like, boom, here it is. I'm like, dude, it's pulled through for me, and that's happened multiple times. So your customer service is fantastic. So
cool. I appreciate that.
You know, that's my review of Apex Advertising Co.
Appreciate that.
But all right, John, well, I'll let you get going here, man. But again, appreciate you coming on to the show and seeing those whitetails. We might have to have you on about how to kill some whitetails.
Yeah, no problem. I did a seminar at Sport Code last couple of years. I have a whole PowerPoint on that. So
really,
yeah, we can go over that someday.
Well, sounds good, man. Well, you have a good day, and sounds like I might actually. I don't know if you can see the sun poking through now, but I'm gonna probably go look for a bear.
Go kill him. I saw your from last night, so go shoot him tonight.
No worries, man. It's actually a better evening this evening than it was yesterday evening, so it worked out great.
Nice. Good luck.
All right. Thanks, John. See ya. All right, guys, that's the podcast. Thanks, John, for coming on to the show. Be sure to go check out his Apex Marketing Co. and the Angry Mountain Productions. They have a YouTube channel. It's a really good elk hunting content, and really excited to see what they come out for 2019. Outside of that, if you can, go on to www.onpointpodcast.com, and we have gear on there, like hats and stuff. We've got links to my other content for the YouTube channel, links to the podcast, and we also have the newsletter, which I would love for you to sign up on. But if you don't feel like doing it, that's totally fine. There's other ways you can help out the show. Just leave us a review on iTunes or something, or become a patron, and that would probably be the number one way to support the show monetarily. Any amount counts for a patron. You get exclusive, basically you get to dictate where the conversation goes. I post on there what the upcoming podcasts are, and if you have any questions, and you guys are first in line to get your questions answered. So outside of that, appreciate everybody listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.